lots of people are wondering why we're not testing at airports, particularly when you're seeing infection rates rise in places like France and Spain. Labour are calling for it. Professor Schroeder said it was a good idea. Given the fact that you can't actually force people to quarantine, or there's no way of actually telling if people are, why don't you just test at airports as well?
We do have sanctions for if people breach the quarantine. The reason that we can't introduce testing reliably at airports is because the success rate is lower than 1 in 10. So as your earlier guest mentioned, actually it's not a silver bullet. You would have to have further tests. And as for Labour calling for it, to be honest with you, it was only weeks ago that Lisa and Andy was writing to me insisting that we introduced quarantine. Now they want us to relax it. I don't think they're really thinking this through. So our number one priority is to make sure, just Sophie, this really important point, our number one priority is to make sure we prevent a second wave, national wave. The quarantine measures are an important element of that, and we can't ease up on them as much as we want to until we've got a safe system to allow us to do that. And the idea that there's just a one-stop test in an airport that would be reliable and dependable is just not borne out by the data, I'm afraid. I wish it was.
Did you hear that? The success rate is less than 1 in 10. That means there's a 90% failure rate, over a 90% failure rate, because he said the success rate is less than 1 in 10. What is the point of getting tested when the rate of which the test works is less than 10%? Or to be more accuracy, is more than 90% inaccurate.
It's because the success rate is lower than 1 in 10. It's because the success rate is lower than 1 in 10. It's because the success rate is lower than 1 in 10.
If we have got this great testing capacity that you're talking about, though, why don't we test at airports and then test 8 days later?
Well, we can look at that and we keep it constantly under review, but that will be subject to the same challenges that you've mentioned in relation to quarantine. So we can think about the system, and we would like to put in a fail-safe system, but until the point at which we can, we're not going to risk reviving or reinfecting the United Kingdom with the virus when we've got to this very important stage with schools going back, with businesses going back, with more jobs being announced. Amazon announced 7,000 new jobs this week, Co-op 1,000 more this week. I thought an interesting reflection of consumer habits, but part of the economic bounce back. We're not going to put that at risk by relaxing quarantine or any other measures which are critical to our ability to control and keep suppressed COVID-19. It's because the success rate is lower than 1 in 10. It's because the success rate is lower than 1 in 10. It's because the success rate is lower than 1 in 10.
We're in a live exercise here. We're in a live exercise here. We're in a live exercise here.
I have been told that if there is any kind of force involved by your religions or your governments, or if someone tries to make you do something, then it is not for your own good. That is correct, said the Spirit. These concepts are one of the underlying structures of your planet and your universe.